Y'all know I love some progression fantasy, right? Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and as always guys, I am Andrew, and today I got another video for you, but before we get to that video, make sure you're liking and subscribing, hitting that bell notification so you can get regular updates for when I put out new content. I post every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Also, make sure you're checking that description box down below for the link to the Wizardly Duo Discord, as well as links to all my social media and information about my Patreon. And that said guys, today I've got another book review for you, but before we get to that book review, let's just talk about how much I enjoy just the progression fantasy like genre subgenre of fantasy. Like there's just something about starting from nothing and working your way up to just become this really like overpowered but like gentle souled. Like I like my progression fantasy to have like a good person at the center of it, and there's just something really appealing about that to me. And so when the author of 1,000 Late, The First Step, Tao Wong basically posted on Twitter, hey, I kind of got more of these large print. Yeah, this is the large print edition for the people with poor eyesight. I got more of these than I know what to do with. Does anybody want a review copy? I kind of jumped onto Twitter and was like, yes, please, I'll have one of those. Thank you very much. And a week later, it showed up at the door. And guys, this is a really enjoyable read. I would say in terms of progression fantasy, if I had to classify it, I haven't read a lot. The only one I've really read is Cradle, and this kind of feels like a second cousin to Cradle. Essentially, this is more focused on the martial arts versus like blasting powers and things of that nature. Like, you can still do that, but this is very much kind of like wire fu on steroids. Like, at one point, we watched somebody like run up a waterfall, which just makes me think of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which was one of my favorite movies growing up. I've probably watched Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon like, I don't know, 15 to 20 times. Maybe even more than that. I used to love it. The sequel was garbage. We're not here to talk about that, though. This is the start of a new progression fantasy story. Our protagonist here is Long Wu Ying. And essentially what's really cool about this is he is just a farmer who basically the world at large is engaged in a war. And so a draft has been instituted at his village. And because this is a secondary draft, it's time for the dregs to get called up. And so he joins the military and goes off to start being trained to be a soldier. And along the way, like a nobleman from his village, just for some reason doesn't like him and decides to challenge him to a duel with real swords, because, you know, what could possibly go wrong? And basically he gets stabbed in this duel and then is then forced to continue marching in the rain, and his wound festers and he becomes deathly ill. Now, you would think, oh, he's deathly ill, he's gonna die. Well, no, the way the magic system in this works is it uses kind of a meditation thing to unlock chi points within the body, and like as you unlock more and more chi points, your body becomes pure and like stronger and faster, and you start reaching almost a sense of enlightenment, and then you get like better at martial arts and things of that nature. You see where this is going. So anyway, he's laying here dying, and he sees that the enemies are pulling like a flank maneuver. And so basically he gets up through the pain, walks through the pain, and informs somebody, hey, we're about to get flanked, you've got to listen to me, and then passes out. And that warning helped to save the camp, and he gets noticed by a cultivation sect. And these people are called the Verdant Green Water Sect. It's a mouthful, and I had to take a peek because it's right here on the back. But he gets offered this offer to be an outer sect member. You've got your outer sect and your inner sect, and the outer sect is kind of like, oh, you're trainees, and then like once you make it into the inner sect, like you've made it. And so then he goes off, like he's given a chance to like purify his body a little bit more and expel this like illness that's killing him, and then go off and train. And from there we kind of proceed on to our adventure. And it's really, really interesting. I really, really enjoyed this story. It does not quite have the same humor that Cradle has. Like, in there, Cradle has, like, an underlying humor. This is a little bit more of a serious tone. So if you're, like, watching my review, and you're like, oh, Andrew said this is, like, kind of related to Cradle. It is, but at the same time, not really. Additionally, I have been wanting to read a lot more self-pub and a lot more Chinese-based fantasy. This, if you look at the cover, is obviously Asian-inspired fantasy. That said, I don't think it comes through incredibly well within just the text itself. Other than the names and like naming weapons and like martial arts and things of that nature, if you change a couple things, this doesn't feel like an Asian world. You know, at times, like I wanted a little bit more immersion in the world. Also, another kind of slight critique and complaint here is the start of this book I mentioned starts with, you know, a call to war. It's a draft. You know, we need soldiers. Once we enter the sect, we don't really see a world at war. We see a world besieged by bandits, but you don't hire soldiers and start training a military offensive for just dealing with bandits. And so that's never really addressed again, because now Long Wu Ying is kind of off in his own little world, training to become a cultivator and one of these magic users and purifying his body and things of that nature. And that just kind of gets left by the wayside here. So I would have liked to seen a little bit more of that. This hits a lot of your regular progression fantasy tropes, where you start from nothing and then through either just sheer force of will, determination, or pure luck, our protagonist gets trained up and starts accelerating faster and getting stronger than his peers and the people around him. And, you know, refusing, you know, that never say die attitude is very, very prevalent here in A Thousand Li. Which I believe that's the series name. And if I'm understanding correctly, by the end of the book, a li is like a measure of distance. So, like, you know, 1,000 li is a long measurement of distance, which means this is just the first step on a long journey, essentially. So far, I think there are 6 books and a novella. I could have that wrong. I do plan on continuing this series. Another hook for people who love Cradle. This is narrated. The audiobooks are narrated by the amazing and the just fantastic Travis Baldree. And I did take a peek at the audiobook and listened to a couple chapters on that. It is absolutely stunning. Travis, again, kills it with his delivery. And I just really, really enjoyed the story overall. Because, you know, I wanted a little bit more of an Asian-inspired fantasy. Like, I wanted the themes to run a little bit deeper. And the fact that it feels very tried and true progression fantasy, I did give this an overall 4 out of 5 rating. I do highly recommend it, and I am hoping that as I progress through this series, I will get more and more Asian-inspired themes that will then drive up my enjoyment, because that's kind of what I'm looking for. Additionally, like, I'm really interested in the cultivation, and, like, it looks like there's more that this world can offer, because we've got, like, mystical beasts, like giant snakes and, like, demon beast spirits and things of that nature that are, like, obstacles or that can be used for, like, training purposes, which we get some of that in Cradle as well. That's why I'm, like, saying, hey, this is kind of the second cousin. You can definitely tell it comes from the same family tree and things of that nature. So I definitely recommend this for fans of Will White's Cradle, because it's just a refreshing. Like, you know, I had that itch after I caught up on Reaper, and I was like, you know what? Like, I want a good short progression fantasy book that I can just fly through and eat up like candy, use as palate cleansers. I found it, guys. I found it. That said, guys, I really, really enjoyed this. This does get a high recommend for me, especially for fans of progression fantasy. That said, guys, that's the end of the book review. So, till next time, guys, peace out. Stay magical. Bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons.